Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and in this video, we're going to play 21 questions. I actually never played 21 questions before, so I don't know if there's actually rules to it, but basically I just took 21 of the most common questions, plus a few extras that you guys have asked along the way, and I wrote them up, typed them up in a Word document, printed them out, cut them up, and then put them in this hat. I'm just gonna draw one out, answer it, and I have my phone here so I can time it. Each question I will give no more than 60 seconds to answer. Sometimes I tend to be rambly, so I'm keeping myself on a time limit. I've never done anything like this before, so if this video is not great, forgive me, but let's get started. Okay, question number 1. How much time is spent building versus editing and filming? So this is kind of a hard question to answer because it depends on the project. But for most medium to large size projects, I would say the split is about 50-50. So it takes me, say, 2.5 days to build the project, then 2.5 days to edit. I would say I spend at least as much time editing as I do actually building. Question number 2. What tools do you recommend getting started with? This is a great question. Oh, I need to start my timer. So the 5 tools that I personally recommend getting started with are a jigsaw, a miter saw, a drill, a pocket hole jig, and a nail gun of some sort. There's different sizes of those. There's also different sizes of miter saws as well, like just in general. Those are my top 5. Okay, next question. What is your background / previous jobs? So I went to college for math and engineering. I got 2 separate degrees, and then while I was in college, I was an intern at a factory. I don't want to say the name of the factory, just because. Then after I graduated, I went and worked at a carbon factory. I was a process engineer there, and it was very much desk job related, and I hated it. So I left after several years and went back to the factory that I was originally working at as an intern while in college. And instead of being like an engineer, I was on the plant floor, and me and a group of guys would design and build and install and program and troubleshoot and work on the assembly line machines. It was so much fun. I got to program a whole lot of things, which I love to program stuff. And I got to like install and set up and program the robots, and that was really fun. They closed it and they laid everybody off in 2019. And so that's when I started Woodshop Diaries full time. And so that is my previous jobs in a nutshell. Next question is, what would you change about your shop setup? So to fully answer this question, you need to take a trip with me across the shop to this room right here. So when we first bought this house, this building was already here. So they had the shell of the building up, but there was no drywall, no insulation, no power, no nothing. So we came in and I needed to get back to work as soon as possible. So our big thing was we needed to get outlets in here and we needed to get power around to the shop. This room was already framed out. So when we started placing the outlets where I thought I wanted them, my original thought was that I was going to use this room over here as this is where I would use most of my tools. So we actually put like a bazillion outlets in this room. You can see there's some outlets behind the lumber storage. There's outlets along that wall, outlets along this wall. And I don't use any of these outlets. So if I had the chance to do this over, I would definitely take a lot of the outlets that we put in here and I would put them in the walls of the section of the shop that I'm actually using. Okay, next question. Have you had a project fail? So that is a great question. I have had 2 tables that developed a crack in the top because I attached the top to the base incorrectly. I attached the table to the base using pocket hole screws through the base up into the top, which didn't allow for the wood to expand and contract with seasonal changes. And those 2 tops developed a crack down the middle where the wood had split apart. So I learned in that you're supposed to attach tabletops with fasteners that allow for wood movement. Now I've also had several tables that I built exactly the same that didn't fail. So I don't know. Next question, do you sell what you build? So this is one of those yes and no questions. So sometimes I do sell the things that I build. In a lot of cases, I will build things that I want to build that I think would make a good video, that I think would make good plans to sell. And then after I get done building it, I will sell it for material cost. I don't do a lot of client builds. I do have a handful of friends that I will build stuff for, but I don't just take orders for things because the way that I work with my schedule, I can't rely on other people's timelines and other people's like special requests and things and keep a consistent schedule to get content and videos out. So it's hard for me to deal with clients and such when I'm actually running a content business, if that makes sense. So I don't take orders. I don't do commissions. Question number, whatever this is. How long have you been doing this? Oh, that's a good question. I've been building things for maybe like 8 to 9 years. As far as how long have I been doing like content stuff, I started my blog about 8 years ago and I started my YouTube channel. Well, I started it, but I didn't really get serious about it until about 4 years ago. So that's kind of the timeline of how things began. Did you play sports in college? So I did not play any sports in college. I did very little fun things in college besides just like study and go to work. But I did run cross country in high school, and I was also part of the newspaper staff and the church's praise team. So I know those aren't all sports, but those all kept me pretty busy, so that was about all that I could manage to do. That and track. I did track, but I hated track. Track was the worst. You would go to meets on like Saturdays, and you would physically be running for a total of maybe like 5 minutes, but you would be there literally all day just for all the events that happened. It was the worst. So I started cross country, and cross country was so much better. If you're not familiar, cross country is like long distance running. So we would run 5Ks and I loved it. What YouTube channels do you watch? Gonna be honest, I don't watch YouTube like at all. I do watch Sam from DIY Huntress. Shout out to Sam. I do watch her videos. I enjoy watching her videos, but I just don't really sit down and watch a lot of YouTube. My husband does. He enjoys Millennial Farmer and some of these like farm channels. There's some guy named Pete. I don't know what his handle is, but he enjoys watching Pete. I think it's like a few small acres or something like that. I don't know. So he watches YouTube. I just don't really get into it. I don't know. If I have free time to spend watching something, it's probably a documentary and not a YouTube channel. So I don't know. I don't watch any YouTube. Sorry. Oh, some of these it's hard to answer in 60 seconds. If I go over just a little bit, don't get mad. What's a skill that you want to learn? Ooh. So this is actually, I'm sure, asked in terms of a woodworking skill that I want to learn. And I'll be honest, I'm not enjoying building things as much as I used to since it became a full-time job. And I don't mean that to sound like I'm a Debbie Downer and I don't enjoy this anymore, but I'm just saying if I were to take the time to like learn a new skill that was going to benefit me, I would want it to benefit me in terms of like things that I enjoy doing. That said, if I were to learn a new skill and like really take the time and put investment and like money behind something I want to learn, I want to learn how to play the violin, which is not woodworking related, and that's fine. I want to learn how to play the violin. I also would like to learn how to build a guitar. I play the guitar, so I would like to learn how to build one, just so I could say like I built my guitar. Trying to get through these fast. I'm sorry. I'm taking a long time sometimes. What are your thoughts on CNC machines? I've actually had several people ask me this, and I think it's a funny question because like I have zero thoughts about CNC machines, and it's not that like I don't like them, I don't not like them, I don't have any thoughts on CNC machines. They are expensive, but they do some really cool stuff. I don't have one. I just haven't really thought that I wanted to invest the money in one because they are kind of expensive, and I just don't know that I would use it as much as it would cost me, if that makes sense. Like the investment wouldn't be worth what I would get out of it. So those are my thoughts, my few thoughts on CNC machines. Oh, this is my favorite, not since the sarcasm. This is not my favorite question. How long / how much was a project? to build? This is that question that I get asked on literally every project and I hate having to answer. That question is just impossible for me to give you an answer that you're going to be happy with. I always tell people that you need to look at the materials list and figure out what the materials are going to cost you right now where you live. Because if you ask me about a project that I built 2 years ago, how much did it cost? Where you live and the prices now, 2 years later, are going to be totally different. Totally, I mean, they could be double, triple, they could be half. It's a big difference. So it's hard for me to answer that question. And also, how long did it take you to build is an impossible question to answer because with filming, everything takes longer. It's also going to depend on what tools you have, what your shop setup is like, how fast you work, how easily you get distracted. If you're working on multiple projects at once, there's a lot of factors. So I don't like to answer the question, how long does it take you to build or how much did it cost? Because those answers between me and you can vary greatly. Is woodworking your full-time job? Woodworking itself is not my full-time job. So I don't build things to sell as far as like I'm not a custom furniture maker as my full-time job. My full-time job is actually content creation. So it's like running my website, running my YouTube channel, selling building plans, like doing sponsored work for brands that I work with on Instagram or whatever. Woodworking is not my full-time job. Content creation, just based on woodworking projects, is my full-time job. I feel like we're over half done. I haven't counted. I don't know. Okay. Are you a dog or a cat person? How could you pick? How could you pick? I know how you could pick. I would say I'm a dog person, but I've had more cats and I've had cats for longer than I've had dogs. So by the numbers, I'm a cat person, but I don't consider myself a cat person. I don't like other people's cats. I just like my cats. And if you've met my cat, his name is Bubby. He is currently right over here on his heat pad in the floor in my shop, and Lucy is right over here on her bed. So I've got both, and I could just never choose between the two. How do you design your projects? Let's say I'm building a table, and so I've kind of pictured in my mind what I want the table to look like. I've either seen one somewhere that I want to kind of like replicate, or I've just imagined it in my brain how I want this table to look. So what I do is I always start with my overall dimensions. How big do I want this thing at the end? And then I'll work backwards. So let's say I want a table, and let's say it's 48 inches wide. And I have an inch overhang on each side, so the table base is going to be 46 inches, and say my legs are 3 inches wide, then I'll take 46 minus 3 to get, like, my apron will need to be 40 inches. And so, like, that's how I basically break down every piece of a project. Like, I picture the end result, overall dimensions, and then I work backwards. I don't really know how to explain how do I design a project. It's difficult to explain that. I picture it, and then I put the numbers to it, and then I build it. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't really answer the question, but that's how I know how to explain it. Where did you learn? So I don't have any like formal training. I didn't go anywhere to like learn woodworking or whatever. Like I started making things. After I got tired of making like one kind of thing, I started making something else, and I started making something else, and then I started making furniture, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, let's see what else we can make. And it just kind of grew from there. So I just learned by doing mostly. I'm self-taught. I mean, it's been 9 years of a lot of trial and error and just kind of figuring things out as I went. If I had a question, I would Google it. I don't have a great answer for that. I learned from doing. Where do you buy your lumber? Oh, this is such a fun question because everybody always gets really mad when I tell them that I buy it from Home Depot, but that's where I buy it, so I don't really know what else to say. I buy all of my plywood from the Home Depot. I buy my 2x material from Home Depot as well, and then I buy my 1x material from our local building supplier. They also sell 2x material as well, but I've noticed that theirs isn't as good as the Home Depot's. People are always like, my Home Depot's lumber looks like crap, and okay, mine does too, but you have to dig a little bit, and so I just dig a little bit to find the good stuff. People often ask like why I don't use hardwood lumber in my projects, and one, because it's very expensive. which is fine if I was building stuff to sell and like the customer was paying me back, or if I was building stuff for myself and I just wanted a specific kind of wood and I didn't mind spending the money. But where I live, if I want any hardwood, I have to call a place. It's like an hour and 15, hour and a half minutes away. And then I have to wait like 4 to 6 weeks for them to like mill it up and then go pick it up. And it's expensive. And I don't have time to wait for things like that. How did you get started in woodworking? So basically, the factory that my husband was working at was doing a big expansion project, and they were requiring him to work a lot of Saturdays and a lot of like overtime. I was at home and I was bored, and I found some pallets in the back field behind the plant that I was working at, and I started bringing them home and cutting them apart and making pallet signs. And at the time, that was when pallet signs were like super trendy and whatever. So I started making pallet signs, and then I was like, well, what else could we make with pallet wood? So I started making like some decorative trays, and I made like a headboard. And well, then we bought a house and we remodeled the kitchen, and I learned how to do the trim work in there. Then I built a dining table for that kitchen. And after I built the dining table, I realized like, oh, I can build furniture. Like, what else can I make? So I started just making different kinds of furniture. I invested in a couple of tools. Basically, at that point, I had a jigsaw, a reciprocating saw, which I used to cut pallets apart previously, and I had a miter saw and a nail gun. And so that's what I started with. But if you're wondering how I got into like the whole like online sharing of content stuff, basically in the process of all of that palette stuff, my friends were like, oh, you should start a blog and show people how you make this stuff and like share it online. So I didn't know what a blog was, and so I did a little research and figured it out, and then I started my website, and things just kind of grew from there. Turned it into a business, and here we are. But there's a lot of things that happened in all of that time frame, but that's it in a nutshell. Okay, we have 3 left, and I have to do this before my camera battery dies. All right, let's see. Can you use 1/2-inch plywood in place of 3/4-inch plywood? So this is a common question. In some cases, you can swap 1/2-inch for 3/4, but in almost every case, you can swap 3/4 for a 1/2. So because 3/4 is more versatile, I keep 3/4 in my shop and I just use it for everything. I come from a manufacturing background, and so in a manufacturing, a lot of times you think about things as like universal parts. Like, so if you have 20 machines and you have, every machine's going to use some proc switches and some MAC valves. Well, it makes a lot more sense to use the same type of proc switches on every machine, the same type of MAC valve on every machine. That way, you just have to stock a few of those items, and they work for every machine. I only have to stock like the size screw that I'll use for 3/4. I only have to stock 3/4-inch edge banding. I don't have to also stock the screws that I would use for 1/2, the edge banding I would use for 1/2-inch, etc. So it just is more streamlined to keep it all 3/4. That's not to say you can't swap it, but that's why I do the things that I do. What are your hobbies and what do you do for fun? So actually, this used to be my hobby. I used to do woodworking for fun, and now I do it for business. So I need something else to do for fun. And honestly, I don't really have anything yet. I've been kind of looking for a hobby that I want to like take on, but I just don't have one. I do play guitar. I'm not very good, but I play in our church's praise band. And so that is kind of fun. Every now and then I'll drag it out and I'll play something and learn a new song or whatever. And so I guess that's my hobby. Honestly, I need a hobby. So if you want to leave me hobby suggestions in the comments below, feel free. For fun, I guess, I do put the dog in the truck and drive around a lot, and we listen to all kinds of fun music. So I guess that's a hobby. I don't know. Okay, I think this is the last one. Last question. Hope it's a good one. Why do you keep things simple and inexpensive? The way that I make money is sharing videos and sharing content. My audience, who I'm trying to appeal to, are the people who are working on the weekends in their garage with the minimal tools that they have to just build the thing that they need and not take more money, more time, and more effort than is really required. So I like to keep things simple and inexpensive so that it's approachable for people who are just getting started. I don't want to turn them away and make them think that this is like brain surgery and they're never going to be capable of doing it. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. And I'm not saying that deceptively. I'm saying it honestly because this is exactly what I did. And that is all of the questions. That was a doozy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed listening to some of my ramblings. If you stuck around for the whole thing, bless you. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for asking all these questions over the years. Let me know in the comments what your favorite question was, if you learned anything new, if you enjoyed the video. If you hated it, please maybe just don't tell me that. Just don't say anything. It's fine. I'll be back next week with a new project build video, I hope, Lord willing. And I will catch you all next time. So thanks so much for watching, friends. And until next time, happy building.